This podcast is sponsored by Good Co-working. Good Co-working is the first solar-powered co-working community in the world focused on cultivating profitable business that do right by the people plus the planet, all while keeping you safe in a beautiful plant-filled wellness center space. Get an address for your business, which comes with 2 daytime co-working days per month to get your meetings done, all for your quarterly cost of $150. Good Work have many membership options from frequent flyer to office rental, so let Good Work help you find just the right space to help you balance life and work. Located in Dallas, Texas. Check out goodcoworking.co and tell them the Help Show sent you. So welcome back, guys. We're so excited to be back. Although we're still wearing our masks and washing our hands, now we have a vaccine for COVID and a new president. Boy, does time fly in 4 months. This year, our series is Mental Health in Sports. So let's get ready for amazing guests, new adventures, and new resources. This month's Help Show is looking at athletes' mental health in the pandemic. Athletes are having to put their careers on hold in the pandemic and missing out on social and emotional aspects of sports can seriously compromise their self-esteem and mental health. In this month's podcast episode, we would like to discuss the physical and psychological effects of the pandemic on athletes, the stigma around mental health in sports, and what can be done to foster a culture of openness and caring athletes.
Did you know, according to a study done by child health experts from the University of Wisconsin School of Medicine and Public Health, 68% of high school age student athletes surveyed reported feelings of anxiety, depression at levels that would typically require medical intervention. That is up by 37% from past research studies from before the pandemic.
Also, did you know that the Dallas Morning News reported that the Mavericks had to pause their season for contact tracing after 4 teammates tested positive for the coronavirus?
And according to the NCAA's Fall 2020 Student Athlete Wellbeing Survey, found that the rate of mental health concerns reported by college athletes were 1.5 to 2 times higher than before COVID-19.
Today's guest is Dr. Trillian Small. She is a mental performance coach at the Dallas Jackals Major League Rugby team, professional team. Dr. Small has a PhD in clinical counseling and has been mental training coach and mental health counselor for 8 years. She's originally from San Antonio, Texas. Woo woo, Texas. Dr. Small was raised in Birmingham, Alabama. She earned her bachelor's in psychology from the University of Missouri, Columbia, before moving to Tennessee to complete her master's in professional counseling at Lipscomb University in Nashville. In 2018, Dr. Small completed her PhD in clinical counseling at Trevecca Nazarene University. Dr. Small moved to Dallas, Texas in 2017 and soon found Attachment Leadership, which serves as an umbrella for a mental health counseling practice and business psychology consulting. She provides customized wellness and leadership development programs, emotional intelligence, corporate training, and youth development curriculum. Additionally, she's the author of 6 books and the founder of her book publishing company, The Speak Publishing. Whew, girl. Dr. Small is also the adjunct professor at the University of Texas, Dallas, in the Behavior and Brain Science Department. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist, a certified John Maxwell leadership development strategist, and a sport and performance psychology consultant where she provides mental training for high performance from the locker room to the boardroom. Recently, Dr. Small was a TEDx speaker. Her talk titled Overcoming the Fear of Love provides a psychological and neurological perspective of fear, particularly as it relates to love. Trillian is also the founder and lead organizer for TEDx Frisco. She was a runner-up for the 2019 Collin County Women of the Year and was recognized at Nashville Black 40 and Under in 2016. Dr. Small has also seen the national and international television and heard on several local news nationally syndicated talk show, radio stations such as CBS, NBS, The World Network, CTN, American Family Radio, and Total Living Network. Dr. Trillian, Thank you so much for joining us today. I want to thank you for taking the time to be our special guest. We call that TTT. That's thank you, thank you, thank you. We're always so humbled and grateful for having such wonderful guests and co-hosts. And I think I'm ready.
All right. Well, let's get started.
Yay.
Question number 1. So for those that are on the sidelines, what effect did COVID-19 have on the athletic identity?
Yeah, so as we can imagine, the COVID-19 has impacted everybody. I don't think there's anybody on this planet who can say they have not been impacted by COVID-19, particularly with the athletes. So I would say them and the coaches have been impacted in a tremendous way, because when you think about it, that for many of them, that is their identity, right? And so sports has been put on a halt.
Yeah.
So the athletes have been impacted, the coaches have been impacted, and of course the fans.
Absolutely.
Because for some, I don't know about you, but on Sundays, I look forward to football. Tuesdays, I look forward to basketball. And for that to be stripped away from just about everybody who loves sports, either plays it or they just enjoy it, that really hit us really hard. For many athletes I've seen, the ones that I've worked with, and just those I've just heard about on social media or the news, you really realize they aren't taking it as well, especially if they have, especially if they feel like that's their only purpose, right? If they feel like that's their only purpose in life. I think those athletes who have a little bit more understanding of who they are outside of sports are handling a little bit better. But overall, I would say, just like most of us, depression, anxiety, and fear, and worry, and stress is really hitting athletes in a pretty particular way.
Okay. So, what are some of the initial mental health symptoms you recognize as a therapist?
Yeah, I think originally shock really hit us first.
Okay.
It's just like, okay, well, what's going on? What do you mean I'm not going to be playing? And if we do play, what do you mean I have to be in this bubble, right? With the NBA, they had to completely isolate themselves. It's just you and a whole bunch of guys. You can't see your wife, your girlfriend, or your kids.
Right.
You're just stuck, in this environment, at least for the NBA. So I think shock kind of hit us at first, and then sometimes people moved into anxiety because it's what's next. And our brains, right, really do not like ambiguity.
Okay.
And our brains, literally, what it will do is it'll try to fill in the blanks. So if there is ambiguity, it'll say, okay, we have to figure out how to fill in this blank because we can't handle that. So what it will do, it'll pull from past experiences to try to make sense of it, or it'll create its own assumptions, which can be good and cannot be bad.
Sounds like classic overthinking.
Yeah, exactly.
Can relate.
We call that rumination, right?
Good to know.
Yeah, and then after that phase, you kind of hit that depression state of, you know what? After your brain has run you down the freeway going 100 miles per hour, you're now burnt out. Okay. So now you're sad, you're depressed, and I'm glad we can laugh about it.
Right.
But it is a serious matter.
Absolutely.
Because there's times like I have to just laugh at myself, like,
Yeah.
really? You just created that whole movie in your head.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, and none of that's going to happen. So you just wasted an hour trillion.
Guilty.
Congratulations.
Not an athlete, but totally guilty.
Yeah. Guilty, raise your hand.
Yeah.
Church finger.
Yeah.
Church finger. Guilty. Yeah, and then you can cycle into anger and confusion, and the emotional wheel of spectrum can just go on and on and on until hopefully you find a place of joy and peace. For some, they may not get to that point, but I kind of seen all of those emotions in everybody, and of course in athletes, that's who we're talking about. Just about everybody, we've seen that.
Absolutely.
Well, athletes control their body, minds, and performance. But with the pandemic, this authority was halted. There was limited access to your team. What was the initial impact of losing access to this support system, and how did you navigate through this period?
Yeah, so as far as athletes, if they didn't have access to their team, or either no access to their team or limited access to the team, no access to the gym, that's their outlet for many of them. That's their way of self-care.
Absolutely.
Dribbling the ball, that's like they get their anger out, or just lifting weights. And so to completely strip that away, not only are you taking structure away, but you're also taking their self-care away.
Absolutely.
Which naturally throws you in a tizzy.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I know.
Yeah.
I was stuck in the house, just as many of us.
Yeah.
I became a runner.
Yeah, I mean, so did I.
Outside?
I started running outside.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That was the best thing ever for me.
Yeah. And so that's a good thing. Some
Yeah.
athletes do find alternatives. Okay, you can't go to the gym. We'll take a walk.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
I was running 10 miles. I didn't know that I could.
10 miles?
Yeah, I didn't know that I could do that. I started with 1, then 3, then 5, and then I said, let's push yourself. 7, you can do this, NiEtta. 9, let's beast mode it. Let's do 10. Yeah.
You're fancy.
Yeah.
Did you guys see that quote? This is insert funny, something funny here. It was a meme. The guy said, I think I'm becoming more like my dog. I'm enjoying long walks. I get excited when I see strangers, and I love car rides.
Gosh. I mean, that sounds about right in terms of how COVID impacted everything.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the question I have for you is the athlete identity is often challenged in the same manner with retirement from sports. So what's some advice you can provide for athletes in identifying who they are outside of sports?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I would simply say sports is what you do. It's not who you are.
Absolutely.
Although some would say, no, I'm an athlete. I'm like, yeah, you are an athlete. That's what you do.
Absolutely.
But one of my friends, his name is Tomas, he actually did a TED Talk and he talked about this, but he quoted a quote from his father and he said, son, what are you going to do once the basketball stops dribbling? Basically.
Yeah.
Because eventually, I don't care if your season of sports ends when you're 12 or when you're 18, 21, or if you're 32, or I think, was that gentleman who just retired? He's like 40 something, football, Tom Brady?
No, Drew Brees.
Drew Brees, yeah. Drew Brees, was he like 40 something?
Yeah, he's probably 40 because he played 20 years.
Yeah, so that's amazing, especially in a football career. So whether your career ends when you're 40, it doesn't matter. Eventually, it's going to end.
Absolutely.
At some point. And so it's, who am I when I am not dribbling a ball? Who am I when I'm not, dancing or whatever the sport may be? It's, who are you? And it's, what's my purpose in life? Yeah. Right? Yeah. Even outside of sports, it's, what's your purpose? Okay, are you called to encourage people, just show people love, just show people hope? There are many ways you can do that in addition to sports. So that when the ball does stop dribbling, you're like, cool, I can pivot. So that's what COVID, I think, this season has really taught you. If you don't do anything at all,
yes,
you gotta learn how to pivot.
Yeah, that was definitely the word of the year.
Yeah. Or you're gonna be stuck.
Yeah, absolutely. So at what point are athletes introduced to psychotherapy in their career? That's what I wanted to.
It totally varies, right? It depends on who is in that child's life. So, I started working with kiddos very early on. So I was in an elementary school. And so, of course, I have my little clients coming. They're 4 or 5 years old. Right. And I'm working with them. I had a basketball player. He was 11 at the time. That was several years ago when I was first getting started. So it's really, it's all contingent upon the parents. And because parents have to give consent to psychotherapy. A kid can't just say, I'm going to do that, and then a parent doesn't have involvement. So it really depends on the parent and their willingness to say, yes, my child needs that. So if the parent doesn't, then maybe when they're in middle school, high school, if the teachers see, like, hey, there's some other issues you have going on, we really need you to go talk to somebody. That could be the case. Or if you have a very exceptional coach who recognizes, hey, like, it looks like you're dealing with performance anxiety, it looks like you're struggling with depression. It's okay to say you're not okay, and it's okay for you to take time off from the sport or what have you, or take a break from class to go see the school counselor, if you will. So I love those kind of coaches that say, you know what, it's okay.
Absolutely.
It's okay, you're not okay. So it really varies.
So I have another question real quick. So my audience varies, okay? And so I have an audience from 18 to 55. So those that don't know what psychotherapy is, please explain that.
Yeah, so essentially psychotherapy is a place where you can go. It's a treatment, right? So it's like counseling where you'll go and you'll sit before a person, or right now we're doing it virtual, at least I am, and you literally can just talk about whatever. It's a space where you can go, and from beginning to the end, the goal is to get you to become a better person. And the beautiful thing is nothing has to be broken. I don't use those words. I don't use broken and we're here to fix you and all that. I don't even like using the word problem. I see them as opportunities or growth areas, because we all have growth areas. No one really likes to say I have a problem. me, I'm okay to say, hey, I got a problem. But for those that don't like that word, it's just a growth area. But yeah, it's just psychotherapy it's clinical services that you receive to help with your mental state and your emotional state, essentially.
Okay.
Doesn't mean you're crazy,
Okay.
right? So if you were to break your arm, you would go to a doctor.
Absolutely.
If you feel emotionally or mentally you're not at a healthy space,
Absolutely.
it's okay to say, I need to go talk to somebody.
Absolutely.
So we're completely, we're a non-biased party, kind of a extra set of eyeballs. Sometimes we can be a little biased, as well as the people we love or that are closest to us.
Right.
So that's just a place to go, just to talk about how you're feeling.
Okay.
And have results.
Results are very
It's just not verbal vomit.
Okay. Results are very important.
Verbal vomit with some results.
So we're still talking about psychotherapy and their career,
Yes.
correct? So
Yes.
have you seen this need change, a need for there to be more psychotherapy for athletes in terms of COVID, becoming a thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think COVID has helped with that. Naturally, personally in my business, and I've seen this across the board and many of my colleagues who are also in the field, their practices, they're literally at capacity now. School, campuses, they're at capacity because so many people, what happened and is happening is when you're stuck at home and you don't have much outlet, guess who you're stuck with? Yourself.
Absolutely.
Even if you have family around, you have the opportunity now to sit with yourself and say, who am I?
Yeah.
Who am I? What's going on? How am I feeling? Because I don't have my normal outlets that distract me.
Right.
Unless you're Netflix and binging and all that stuff,
Right.
or overeating. That's another way of just kind of avoiding at times.
Right.
And so naturally what people are doing now, they're saying, I'm not okay. And I really need to talk to somebody. Otherwise, I'm going to hit rock bottom.
Right.
And so I think that COVID has really naturally helped with that. But also, when you see a lot of celebrities, and I think that's helped, right? You have Serena Williams, Michael Phelps, Kevin Love, who are now finally talking about, or who have been for some time, talking about their mental health state.
Absolutely.
And I think naturally that helped. It's like, oh, you're cool, and you're saying it's okay to talk about mental health. Okay. It's okay for me to talk about it as well. And so I think that there's a compilation of things that's really helping people to really realize, like, yo, you really can go talk to somebody.
Right. And that it's okay.
Yeah. I think because what has been going on with COVID, because everyone has been on social media, it has been an outlet for a lot of people, and especially for athletes that I've been kind of viewing over different people's pages.
Yeah.
And that it's almost becoming this. It's not becoming as big of a stigma as it used to be. There's still a stigma.
There still is.
And especially in the Black community. So I'm not going to be like, oh, the stigma's gone. I'm like, that's absolutely false.
Right.
But people are opening up more about what mental health issues, what's going on in their lives. Now, some people are not doing it the healthy way as I'm examining it.
Yeah.
But at least they're taking the time to say, hey, this is what the problem is. Now, if you really care about somebody and you're viewing over their social media, to me, you should inbox and say, hey, you want to talk?
Right.
Or, hey, what's going on? That's what you can do.
Yeah.
Instead of being in a place of judgment. Because I think so many people, they do judge people. And who are we to judge people? So I noticed that a lot with COVID, with the whole not being able to go outside. Because at first I used to spend like 4 hours a week. Now I'm like 12 hours a week on social media. I'm embarrassed. Get it off.
It's okay. We're not judging. No, nobody's judging. No, it's interesting though. I think it's very important for us to differentiate terminology here, because sometimes people use mental illness and mental health as synonyms.
Okay.
But they're not, right? So everyone should be striving towards mental health.
Correct.
Right? It's like physical health. You got your vital signs and all that. Mental health is the exact same. So it's, do I have the coping skills? Do I have the ability to regulate my emotions? Do I have a social support? It's mental health. Do you want mental health? Yeah, of course. I do too.
Yeah.
Right? So it's when we say, oh, you got mental health issues. Okay. Now what you're saying is you either have a mental illness or a mental disorder, which is actually diagnosable. And you can't Google your diagnosis. Even if you're like, oh, Google said I have anxiety disorder. Okay, cool. But you still need to make sure you go to a clinician, a licensed person who can actually confirm that.
Absolutely.
Right? Because you could just be going through a process where you're needing to learn how to adjust. adjust, because that's a disorder as well, for whatever reason, adjustment disorder. But there's also, so you have mental health, which is everyone should be striving towards that. You have mental illness, which needs to be diagnosed.
Correct.
But many of us don't have mental illness. It's just you have a mental challenge, which means, hey, there's something going on that's challenging my mental health, and I need to do something about it. So I need to increase my social support. I need to have better coping, shift from maladaptive to adaptive coping. I need to stop going to the refrigerator 25 times a day, whatever the case may be. It's okay to have a mental challenge. It's okay to have mental illness, right? But there is a difference. Sometimes people feel like, I can't say I'm struggling because they feel like, oh gosh, that means I have a disorder. Okay. Now what does that mean about my career? But it could just be, it's just a challenge.
So with that challenge being said, do you think athletes are predisposed to mental health problems at a young age?
Oh, absolutely. Because it's pressure. Athletics is all about performance, performance, performance.
Absolutely.
Win, win, win. Right? And so at an early age, it's don't fail. Do not fail. And don't get hurt. And, and it's be strong and go out there and get us that trophy. So if you are, most athletes who are, especially professional ones, they start 12 and under. Some of them, they start at 2, 3, 4 years old. Right. So starting at 3 years old, these are the formidable years of your brain development. You're naturally being groomed to not fail. You're tall, don't fail.
So I have a question for Kim.
Yeah.
Did you groom your boys not to fail?
Clearly.
Because
because both of them played sports. And
Yeah.
it's probably something that I wasn't really aware of. I didn't play sports, so I have no idea what athletes really go through. But of course, I was married to one, and now my youngest son is one. And now hearing the way she described it, he started playing t-ball at 3.
Okay.
So, and it was always stress. Win, win, win. Win the tournaments, be fastest, keep your grades up in order to keep being able to play the sport. Make sure that you are providing support for your teammates. Yeah. So if that's being instilled at 3 and now he's 23, he's been getting that drilled into his head for 20 years.
That discipline. That's what I really admire about a lot of, women and men, people that play professional elite sports, the discipline they have.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
The discipline is good, but what that does is it doesn't give them permission to have a break, right? And just chill and not be on, because they always feel like they have to be on. Now there's an organization that I love called Positive Coaching Alliance, PCA, and what they are teaching and they're encouraging coaches and parents is to have a culture that says, yes, win, but it's not win at all costs. So it's win, but also have a culture within your arena that says, we're also teaching life lessons. Okay. So yes, we want you to win. We want the trophy. We want the scoreboard to reflect that we put in the work. Absolutely. But more than that, are we building solid people? Are we building people who can say, I failed. Yeah, that hurt. That sucked. But now I have the knowledge of what didn't go well, and I can apply it next time. It's like Dweck. The PCA also kind of supports her as well, or like her work. Carol Dweck talks about growth mindset and a fixed mindset. Many athletes have that fixed mindset that says, no, you can't win. No, you can't lose. No, you can't make mistakes. So that then means if you don't fail, if you don't succeed, now you are perceiving that failure as if you are a failure. So that's now intertwined, right? So it's like, yeah, the game was lost. Like, you're not a loser. Y'all just lost the game. Yeah. Right? And so in order to shift from, many parents encourage a fixed mindset unknowingly, right? Of run fastest, right? Get the most rebounds or whatever the case may be. And what you're telling them is, no matter what, you need to become the best person, because there's always competition, and that's what makes athletes great, because they realize, like, there's the next person on the bench waiting to take your spot. Yep. So that's what that does motivate. Stress and anxiety does kind of create that competition, but at some point you do have to say, I can laugh at myself, like I totally flubbed. It's okay. And I don't have to kill myself to make sure that I get the starting position on the team, although it is desirable.
That was very interesting. I'm sitting here just like taking it all in. But I'm like,
Yeah. I was like, how do I want to raise my kids?
So with COVID-19 affected how people address their mental health, because I want to switch this question around. How did it affect the athletes that you know? Because I know it affected everybody drastically, but even with you, Kim, the athletes that you know, how did it affect their mental health? Like, did you see a change in progress or increase or decrease?
Well, I mean, COVID impacted my son. So my son plays baseball. He's a minor league baseball player, and he had literally just started spring training when COVID hit. It hit the Yankees locker room. Like, I think it was one of the first baseball teams that hit and shut everything down.
Yeah. Okay.
And so his season was canceled. He ended up having to come back from Tampa and spent the past year here in Dallas being responsible for working out on his own, hitting on his own, making sure he ate healthy, and, not go nuts just being here, basically isolated like everyone else. And so, I've been proud of him because he handled it well. He kept up with it and stayed on task. But, I mean, it was work. You know what I mean? Like, I'm assuming it was something within him that forced him or made him remain so disciplined, because he definitely could have gone off the rails. Absolutely. Because there was nobody watching him. Yeah. And so he ended up living with a couple of his other friends that are also pro baseball players, and they encouraged each other to keep working out, go to the batting cages. He flew to California a few times to still hit with his hitting coach out there. Okay. And he leaves for spring training next week. So we'll see what happens. Yeah.
And that's good that he had that social support.
Yeah.
Right. Other people hold you accountable. Otherwise, you're just like, do I want to work out today?
Right.
Do I want to eat healthy?
Okay.
Yeah, that's good. But I mean, like my nephew, he's little league. He's like 10.
Gotta start somewhere.
I gotta start somewhere. You gotta start somewhere.
I was there too.
You gotta start
13
somewhere.
years ago.
Look at him now. Come on.
Look at him now. Look at him. So look, soon he'll be there. But it was funny, not funny, but he was bouncing. I mean, boys have that natural kind of like all over the place energy. But I mean, he was like bouncing off the walls. Oh. And I'm like, we gotta get you back outside and playing baseball. But no, other athletes like a little bit older than 10 years old. They have been impacted. With the Dallas Jackals, we weren't able to start our season this year. We had to push it to 2021 because there was so many just kind of barriers for us starting our season, and we just wanted to make sure that the owners wanted to make sure that they got a good first season start. And so they just made the decision to start next year. But as you can imagine, some of these guys, many of them, they were looking forward to it. Right? I would say all of them. But now to say, just kidding, now you can't play, and you were expecting it. I mean, anybody's heart would be crushed if they had something in mind that they were told they can't do anymore.
Absolutely.
So I was planning on traveling.
Yeah.
You said I was.
Man, I have missed airplanes.
I know.
So I think we're on Q3, Kim.
So short-term and long-term effects of the pandemic within the athletic community. Let's talk about that. Like, what resources have you seen used during the pandemic?
For short-term and long-term, there's resources for mental health. I would say there have been a lot of organizations. I think the NBA, NFL, just a lot of other nonprofit organizations and universities have created resources for people to have Zoom calls. I know it's Zoom. You're in your blazer up top, your pajamas on the bottom.
All the time. Okay.
I mean, you get tired of that eventually. But I've seen so many just organizations and companies creating resources for people to still have a sense of community and engagement. And we're in Dallas, and Dallas is just huge on networking, and just really bonding and connecting. So I mean, hey, it's Zoom network, it's Zoom connecting. So I've seen that. Now naturally people are really getting back out into the kind of the normal swing of life, and so the gyms, the one I work out at, they're in there like nothing ever happened. So I think that's just what you kind of have to do. You got to pray that you don't catch COVID and get sick, but just be as careful as you can. But utilizing the resources. I've seen one athlete, I forget who it was, but he took up knitting.
Interesting.
So he's
peaceful.
Yeah. So I've seen a lot of people just take up new hobbies right? And now, I mean, hey, he may have a whole career knitting, and he's a professional basketball player.
Hey,
Start selling them at an exorbitant cost.
Right. This is like
Smart.
This is $20,000. I'm like, for what? A beanie? No.
Your side hustle.
So the question I have to ask you, what are the overall health conditions that you see? Because now we're being able to move. I'm not gonna say it's not back to normal. Let's say that it's totally not back to normal. We're still wearing masks, and some people are not wearing masks. But neither here nor there. There are overall health conditions that are happening. Then also, I forgot where I read it at, but it's like once a person, like if an athlete catches COVID, their immune system is a lot different than what it was prior before. Which that's an issue with them playing, which that can be an issue with their coins. Let's just put it. I'm just going to say it that way.
Yeah.
And so, what are the conditions that you're seeing? What are the overall conditions you're seeing?
Yeah, of course, I'm not an MD, medical doctor, but I have seen, and I'll get into like the brain and how that COVID is affecting that. But of course, respiratory, it's affecting that. It's affecting, of course, the immune system. I've seen people with, I haven't seen, but I've read articles about people having inflammation in the heart.
Right.
I imagine the athlete who is sprinting down the court.
Absolutely.
And his heart is pumping. I've read articles that said COVID has caused people to have enlarged hearts. That's not a good thing. You can say like, oh, we should have a big heart. No. Well, in a literal sense, that's not good. The bigger the heart, the more it has to work.
Absolutely.
So if you're exerting extra energy, that's not good for the athlete, right? Also, I know some psychiatrists, psychologists have coined like the term COVID brain now, and they're looking at brain fog. They're looking at inflammation in the brain, how it affects memory, retention, how it affects your ability to retain new information, and as you can imagine, for the athlete, if they're not able to retain the playbook, if they're not able to remember, what was said in the meetings, if they're not able to focus, if they're having brain fog, right, it affects their mental capacity. A majority of being an athlete is the mental game anyways. I've heard that so many times. It's 90% of your ability to be an exceptional player is all up here in your head.
Right.
The rest of it is physical. But, right, if you're competing with exceptional player, well, what's the difference?
Right.
Well, you got to start up here, right in the head. And so if COVID is affecting that, then that's going to be a big hit for many athletes. Now, they have shown that there are ways, if you can catch it early, certain things you can eat. I'm not a clinician. I'm not a MD again, so check with your doctor. I'm like, don't say I told you. But they have said, as far as eating, certain exercises you can do to really help with that brain fog and just the impact that it has literally on the organ of the brain.
Right.
It's not just impacting your mind, but it actually affects the brain.
Okay. Proactive measure. Okay. So, question for you. So, proactive measure to prevent and address mental health crisis in your athlete community. So, what would you give what would you tell a wife or, let's say, a student or a friend, like different preventive measures to help those that are facing crisis in the athlete community? Like where to go, what to do, what to.
Yeah, I love being proactive.
Okay.
Right? And so if you can begin to implement self-care in any way, now I'm not saying sit at home and sing Kumbaya for 30 hours. I'm not saying, sit and meditate for 1 hour, because some people really find that difficult, right?
Yeah.
I can't just sit here for
Could you sit for an hour, Kim?
An hour?
Yeah.
Like just focusing on your breathing for 1 hour?
No. I thought maybe if the TV was on, some music playing, but yeah. Silence for an hour?
For an hour. No.
Oh, no.
Give me a good 5-10 minutes, maybe 10 minutes.
Yeah, I'd get bored with myself.
You're like, I'm done breathing.
Yeah,
I'm done.
What do you think? I don't know.
Yeah. I'm like wondering what's on Netflix.
Right. So for some people, that type of meditation is uncomfortable, and it's just like, ain't nobody got time for that. So for athletes, you can be mindful and shoot free throws. How do you do that? Okay, what does the ball feel like in your hand? When you're raising your arm up, what does your arm feel like as you're releasing? What does the wind, the air under your hand as you're releasing, what does that, because you actually feel that. Okay. If you're mindful, you can.
Okay.
Otherwise, you're just like, oh, shoot, whatever. But you can be mindful literally in everything you do. You can be mindful in the way you eat. So it's, okay, cool, we're eating this snack here. Before you open it up, what color is it? What does it look like? What's the texture? What does it smell like? Nobody does that because normally we are just talking and eating at the same time. But if you want to just practice mindfulness, you literally can do it. You don't have to sit for an hour, because I wouldn't either. Focusing on your breathing. You could do yoga, right? You could do long walks and just notice what you hear, see, smell, and taste while you're out in nature. I don't know if you're eating anything out there in nature, but if you're eating the leaves, you just notice what you're eating or what you're tasting while you're out. So for parents, I would say, make it fun. We're talking about young people, right? Make it fun for that kid. It doesn't have to be, again, going back to what we started with, their identity is not just an athlete.
Right.
So it's not, oh gosh, you can't play basketball, football, what are we going to do with you?
Yeah.
No, I mean, they could be a very great orator.
Yeah.
Like, teach them public speaking, right? Teach them a new language, or whatever the case may be. And for for the older ones, right? It's high school, or for maybe the kid, the senior in high school or college that missed their last year. That can be tough because you didn't play your last year. Some of them, I think they're giving them a chance to kind of do it again. But do you want to stick around for another year?
Right, even that's difficult.
So in that, it's just getting creative. Right, using your creative curiosity juices to find solutions. And that's what, to be an amazing athlete anyways, you have that amazing ability to be mentally flexible.
Right.
Which means you have a really great ability to solve problems. Right? And that's what creativity. So if you're over here knitting, going back to what we talked about earlier, if you're knitting, that's using your creative juices. You're strengthening the part of your brain that is responsible for creativity. The stronger that gets, it's transferable no matter what you're doing.
Well, we're getting ready to close out this podcast, but before we leave, I'd like to take a moment and thank everyone for listening to our audience today. We'd like to also remind you that we are a nonprofit organization operating entirely off the generous support of our donors. So if you'd like to give to our organization, we appreciate you. You can send your donation to via Cash App, $, The Help Show, that's all one word, or on our website at www.thehelpshow.org. There's no donation too small. Every dollar will be given to strengthen our efforts. If you'd like to donate $1,500 or more and become a VIP sponsor, then we'll have additional packages listed on our website. And you can visit us at www.thehelpshow.org for more details. So I really enjoyed this podcast.
I did as well. This was good.
I enjoyed, Kimberly, your time and your conversation, and Dr. Trillian, I enjoyed you as well. So thank you, ladies, so much for helping us spread awareness about mental health. So, I always try to give a little bit of words of encouragement with the Help Show. So I would like for Trillian to give us words of encouragement instead of myself, because I always give like these same little things. So I wrote it down, but I'm just gonna pass it towards you.
I want to hear what you got to say.
No, my words of encouragement is like for a listening audience today. It's important to make space for recovery. In order for you to do your best, to be your best, you have to let your mind, body, and soul rest.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. So that's kind of me. I work out all the time. Kimberly does too. You do. So we all work out. We're not professional athletes. But hold on. But the way this girl works out right here, I don't know.
Well, I mean, an athlete is a body that moves according to Nike.
Okay.
So
Just do it. Do what we all are.
right, do it, Kimberly. Right, Nike. You can just go ahead and become a sponsor. Thank you.
Yeah, really.
And then I also want to give a couple resources that I looked up, because we're always like giving resources for the community. So if you're having difficulty with mental health or with anxiety, or even if you want to be a part of a community with sports, these are the resources that I came up with. So we have the Mark Cuban Hero Center. We have Up to Us. And if I'm going a little fast, don't worry about it, because it's going to be on our website and it's going to be on our social media. MLB Player Resource Center. Also, we have Anxiety and Depression Association of America. We have Depression of Bipolar Support Alliances. We have Mental Health America, which I actually did my when I was in grad school. I did 2 years with them for my
Nice.
yeah, for nonprofit and stuff. So I like them a lot. So they're gonna be on all my stuff. And then also I'm a part of NAMI, National Alliance of Mental Illness. So I'm a member there. So I think it's important for people to know about those different resources. And also, before I forget, our podcast will be April the 30th at 6:30. And I want to give my gratitude and acknowledgements to our partners, which we have Auckland Research Associates, NJI Holding, Good Co-working, Gifted Mind Foundation, Duke's Hair Studios, and White Pearl Inc. So those are our partners. I just got tongue twisted. Make sure you edit that, dude. Because I was like,
Take that part out.
please edit that, please. Thank you.
And we're live.
So thank you for listening, and please stay tuned. The Help Show wants to thank all of our partners: Auckland Research Associates, NJI Holding, Good Co-working, Gifted Mind Foundation, Duke's Hair Studios, and White Pearl Inc.